Clive Barker Podcast audio commentaries.
Thanks to your generous donations to our Kickstarter funding campaign,
Clive Barker Podcast presents Fundraiser 9.
Celebrations! Welcome to episode 436 of the Clive Barker Podcast, and as this airs, it'll be Christmas Eve, so Merry Christmas Eve.
Yeah, we're recording on the eve before Christmas Eve.
Yeah. What better time to than to watch some Hellraiser movies?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's how
when the ghosts are in the air.
That's how we celebrate.
We're going to be watching the workprint for Bloodline that was unveiled to the world in the new Arrow box set, right, Ryan?
Yeah. This is an exclusive version of the workprint that's in the Quartet of Torment, right? Other than, of course, Arrow just announced another box set of Hellraiser movies called the Hellraiser Tetralogy. That's going to come out next year. And honestly, what's the difference between a quadrilogy and a tetralogy? They both have 4 movies in them.
Right. Yes. So I think the main difference between this set, the Quartet of Torment...
No, that's not what I asked. What I asked is what's the difference between a quadrilogy and a tetralogy? Yeah.
I think one comes from Greek and the other one comes from Latin.
There we go.
Tetra and quad.
Yeah. No, but I get what you're saying. That I think this new one is just a cheaper, like it's not a limited edition, and it's probably a worldwide release instead of a British release.
I think somebody at Arrow has a fetish for the T word because it's the tetracycline of terror.
Yeah.
I think eventually we might be seeing some of these 4K Ultra HD come out single releases for each movie. I don't know. That's just my speculation.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, it is a UK or European release, which doesn't
UK company.
Yeah. Right. But the quadrilogy or the what is it called?
Quartet of Torment.
The Quartet of Torment is we had to import it. So right. I think that this new one, the tetralogy, is going to be probably more of a worldwide release. Yeah, and technically
4K Ultra HD Blu-rays are mostly region free, right?
Right. So that distinction doesn't matter so much, but I think it's still one is a.
They had to come up with a different name to separate them.
Yeah, I think one is a more worldwide release, and I think one is a more regional, even though they're both region-free discs.
So the cool thing about this is that I did not. We've talked about this on the podcast before. That Ryan, you got into the 4K before I did, so you've been watching Rawhead Rex in 4K, Candyman in 4K. I thought, well, maybe it's time for an update, and so I decided to buy myself a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray player. What better reason to upgrade than for this Quartet of Torment, right?
Yeah. Well, you still need to get a 4K TV, though, right?
I am actually looking at. I had a 4K computer monitor.
Oh, there we go.
So I plugged it into my 4K monitor with the HDMI cable, and I'm good to go, baby.
All right. Way to inaugurate that with VHS footage.
I know, but still pretty good transfer they did for this one. It's pretty clear.
Yeah, no, and actually this was a really neat cut. It's been a really long time since I've seen any of these old versions of like I think years ago we talked about the VHS workprint, a different version of the the workprint version of the.
Okay.
Well, we'll introduce the guests at least. So I'm Joe with Ryan, and we've got Nina and Ed from Cenobium.
Yeah.
And Ed is our blind podcaster. So we'll be talking a little bit about some descriptive audio while we describe some scenes sometimes. And I promise I'm not going to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who keeps saying, "Oh, look, now this scene is where I do this and that." Ha ha ha.
Well, the funny thing about this whole podcast is that, we're talking about 4K, which I can't see in the first place, but I did back in the day see all the work prints and stuff that were online, the VHS crappy quality back in the day.
And you visited the set of Bloodline while they were doing this, and you got some interviews, which you did with them on your camera. Was it like a camcorder or what?
Yes. Cam type camcorder.
Yeah.
So
I'm guessing that one of the Weinsteins weren't on set when you were visiting.
No.
It was at the Four Seasons.
Set for hardly any of their film.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
Yeah, so keep your eyes peeled for Ed Martinez's YouTube channel, and maybe in the future you guys will put those interviews with Bruce Ramsey and Valentina Vargas there, right?
Well, I'm hoping that we
teasers.
could also perhaps, entice Arrow, if they're going to release Bloodline again, maybe on a single release, then my stuff could perhaps be part of this.
That makes sense. Yes. When they release another box set in a couple of weeks. The next weekly box set that comes out from Hellraiser.
The pterodactyl of terror.
The pterodactyl! Yay!
The tetracycline of terror. And the pterodactyl of terror.
But
if they own the rights to this for a few years, there might be, another release. I mean, I did reach out to them, but, it was too late. They had already made the discs.
Hulu, they should have put the Hulu version of the movie in here. I mean, I don't know. I mean, of course, then there's also all the direct-to-video movies, which they've, specifically left out, which I can kind of understand. But I think the Hulu movie was a big deal, and usually when a new movie comes out, that's when all the box sets start happening, and so that they can include it. And
you think they should release this as a pentology of terror?
I think the rights might be too tied up. They couldn't get the rights. I mean, the older films are one thing, but the new one, with Disney and Hulu being involved.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, and I don't. Disney probably doesn't even want it to be on a disc. They want people to keep subscribing.
Well, they did sell it in UK on a disc.
It's on a DVD, and it's a really bare bones with no special features. I mean, it's pretty buried.
All right, so let's set up the work print. I think we will start where you see the opening card that reads, "The following version of Hellraiser Bloodline is a work print with temporary music and sound effects. It was assembled sometime after Kevin Yeager's departure from the film. Even though his name is still listed as director in the opening credits, it is most emphatically not his director's cut, which remains lost." And then it says, "This version, which has a different plot structure and some alternate material compared to the final Alan Smithy cut, is presented from a time-coded VHS, the best material available for this release." Yeah. So that's the opening card, and so I'm setting that up right now.
And it's from the special features of the disc 4, the Quartet of Torment. Yeah.
And is the theatrical cut on disc 4 as well?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
And where is Pete Atkins' commentary?
Also on disc 4.
Yeah. I'll get you a way of listening to that as well, Ed. Sorry that I didn't get it in time for this episode, but I will get it to you.
Okay.
All right. So I've got my video on pause. 3, 2, 1, play. All right. So here we go. There's the card that I just talked about. And this is the second work print that I've seen. Because back in 2000 and what? Like 5, 4? I don't even know anymore. What's going on?
That was when the work print went on the internet?
Yeah, that's when the first work print came out. So that one leaked in the Hellbound web forum. One of our friends, I'm not going to name names because I don't think they want us to.
I know a friend who it was.
Yeah. They purchased a VHS, which apparently belonged to a friend of Peter Atkins, and so they were like, they watched it and they were like, holy crap, there's stuff here I've never seen before, and that really got everybody excited at the old Hellbound web forum. And and another friend of ours in New York, he got the tape and he turned it into he digitized it, and then shortly after that, it was released on our Hellbound web forum as a video that was placed online, and that's when it started spreading out across the internet like wildfire.
And also the script.
Yeah, the script.
Well,
on Hellbound Web.
And you were saying that had better, some better quality footage than what some of the footage in this one?
No, this one has better quality footage.
Oh, it does?
This one that came out. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said that one did, because you were saying that they should have asked.
No, that one had all kinds of white cards that said scene missing and stuff.
Yeah, and effects missing and stuff. This one is pretty, I wouldn't say finished, but it's pretty well put together.
Yeah.
Well, there's no cards, right? That say
there's no cards.
No, nothing like that.
I like the opening of this one. Here's director of photography Jerry Lively. He wasn't the first director of photography. I think the first one quit due to some problems he was having a few weeks into the shoot, and then Jerry Lively came in.
Wasn't he involved in the first Hellraiser?
I think so. I think so. Written by Peter Atkins, and I loved all the automaton stuff that we see here. And
how does this compare to the script? If you have your book there.
Yeah, I do have my book. Yes, so this is how the script opens as well.
I'm a little bit behind you guys because I messed up hitting play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It does open in the script. Interior Le Marchand's workshop, nearly midnight, extreme close-ups of automatons and stuff like that. And now it goes from that to Jacques, played by Adam Scott. Who went on to have a really big career. He's coming in with Valentina Vargas as the young peasant girl.
Yeah.
To see Angelique.
Yeah, and I didn't know that they had dubbed her voiceover in this movie until it was mentioned in that video, that Joe Blow video that Ed recommended to us, which I've linked in the show notes.
The thing about that is that, just like in Nightbreed, how they dubbed Doug's voice.
Yeah. And a bunch of voices.
In the first Hellraiser, how they made them all Americans.
Yeah.
The dinner scene.
Man, Mickey Cottrell is so creepy.
Yeah.
As DeLille, right?
Yeah, and actually he looks a lot like the Le Marchand in the Books of the Damned, if the way he's artistically, drawn.
Yeah, the way that I saw that Books of the Damned was he reminded me of Benjamin Franklin with those old-fashioned socks and stuff and the little short pants.
Exactly, yeah. And DeLille is way creepier than Le Marchand, obviously, is depicted in the film. But they wanted...
Yeah, but in the comic book, he was supposed to have killed children and boiled them into their fat would be lubricating the parts of the box.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems that they separated Le Marchand into two different characters in this movie, and they made like DeLille, who's like the evil, like you said, looks almost like Le Marchand, but then you got the nice Le Marchand, who's got a pregnant wife, and he just wants to make toys, and he just finds himself way over his head.
Right.
Yeah, because they wanted, you're right, because they wanted like a redeeming arc for the bloodline. And
for
you can't do that with the Books of the Damned version of Le Marchand, right? There's no redeeming that person.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
And ironically, I had that comic book with me, and I went to the set, and I met, the actor Bruce Ramsey, and had an interview with him, and showed him the comic book, and told him about how in the comic book this character that he's playing is this debauched, evil, old Benjamin Franklin-looking guy, and he was blown away. He was like, "You're kidding."
Yeah.
I think that this story is so layered, especially when you read the so-called writer's cut by Peter Atkins, the script that was released by Encyclopocalypse. Because look at the things that he says here. Like even says, all alone, not even christened, I understand. He's just adding little layers of stuff. Like they got a peasant girl who's not even christened, so they can sacrifice her and have her body be possessed, or her skin be possessed by a demon from hell.
One strange thing in here that I thought was interesting was that when the callback line when she comes back and says, "So you don't bruise," I was like, wait a minute. I thought, why does she remember that, right? Because that's not the same person anymore.
Yeah.
You know what else, though, is think about how they did that. Like, in other words, you have a peasant girl, and you're skinning her. And the skin, I mean, from a special effects standpoint, the skin, it's ridiculous. You don't have fingernails and fingers still on your portion of your arm after you've skinned it. That's in the Hellraiser world, you do.
But let me tell you, it makes for a heck of a shot when they show the skin washed and hanging around by the chains. It just looks so good.
Right, here it is now.
And
We're seeing it now.
For artistic license, I can forgive that. But from a standpoint of logic and realism and stuff, it's ridiculous because, like, if you skin a deer or a rabbit or whatever, you cut around the wrists and the feet so that you skin the main portion of the body and you leave off the little pieces like fingernails and things.
Yeah. But how do you do something like this? Like, is this like silicone? They just place a little thin layer of silicone and then pull it out like a glove to make a hand?
It's kind of like that in the sense that, you make a mold and then the mold is got the detail on the inside of the mold. So you paint, whether it's rubber silicone or rubber latex, and then you peel it out. And then on the outside where the flesh, has pore texture and stuff like that, that would be then on the outside. And you get your thinness of the skin by painting it onto the inside of a mold,
Yeah.
So it's a sequence where Delil is now...
Did you say you just cut out like for 10 seconds or so? You said
Sorry.
The sequence where Delil
is summoning, the magic, right? He's going like spectare navicula suaves, and apparently it is Latin, but it's kind of pig Latin. It's kind of like doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like he talks about something like in the little boat softly or something like that, and
he keeps repeating the same thing over and over and over the same line.
But Jacques is totally terrified, and now we see from a crack on the floor. The chains are all shaking, and I love the part where you see there's like liquid or some sort of like presence filling the skin, right?
Yeah.
So you see the arm is starting to take shape, and you see these like a torrent of something going into the skin.
Almost like an invisible man filling in the body,
Yes. It's a great sequence.
How is the script describe this? Because it seems... like, I don't know if Pete would have written it this way. It's like I thought that the pentagram on the floor and the book of, evil spills or whatever, is much more involved, like the technique of bringing her to Earth, from a demon.
Well, you're right. In the script, actually, Angelique is already there. And we start with Le Marchand's workshop, and then he goes to deliver the little box to the Chateau du Rêve, which means the dream castle. And when he gets there, Delil already introduces him to the Lady Angelique, the princess. So there is no summoning scene in the script that Peter Atkins wrote. So they just put it here, I guess.
Where does the princess come from? Is that Pete's word? Pete used princess?
Yes, he does. He says, Delil is announcing to Le Marchand, the princess is your true patron, Le Marchand. The box was her conception, your employment, her idea. So
that's good information.
Yeah, and
Delil summoned her
that.
off the page. So she's already there when Le Marchand comes in, and she has the idea to make the box, which gives her even more agency and more of a plan.
Yeah, and she sets up the whole Hellraiser mythology of demons being able to come to the world.
She is evil.
Here's Bruce Ramsey waking up from his tortuous dream again. Now we're in the present future.
Now, this is the way that the editing of even the work print, this is not the script, because the original script, it stays all in one time period and it doesn't jump around, right?
Well, it does jump around from time to time, but the first part, when it opens for a long time in the past sequence, because there's a whole bunch of things that happened which make the movie make more sense to me. For example, so Angelique, she gets summoned by Delisle in the movie, right? But then later on, she kills Delisle, and then Jacques is like the one controlling her. But we don't understand why, because Delisle was the one who summoned her. He says the line, "He who summons the magic commands the magic." So why was Delisle killed by Angelique if he summoned the magic? He could command her.
In this version, they don't explain it. So you figure he must have screwed up or gotten in Hell's way or something.
Yeah,
but that's what's good about being able to refer back to script pieces.
Yeah, in the script, there's a whole sequence where, you see Angelique seducing Le Marchand, making sure that he, they kiss and all that stuff. And Delisle is in the shadows kind of jealous, because Angelique has figured out that this guy has a talent to open doors and make puzzles. And so she's
trying to motivate him with sex.
Yeah. And in the meantime, Delisle is feeling like, now that she's got this box that can open the door, she doesn't need the old magic and the pentagram anymore, so I'm obsolete. So he tries to kill Le Marchand. Angelique says, hey, you're standing in Hell's way because Hell needs this toy maker. And she kind of lifts him up, throws him out of the window in the chateau. And then she threatens Le Marchand that he needs to work for her and he better think real hard.
Effectively, the audience at this point would think he's dead. Like in other words, she is said and he has said that as long as you don't stand in Hell's way, well, Le Marchand, Delisle, you just stood in Hell's way. So, out the window you go.
Out the window. Genevieve, Le Marchand's wife, shows up at the chateau because she's got a bad feeling about this. Then she finds the chateau door unlocked and goes in, and she sees Le Marchand standing off against Angelique, saying, I don't want to work for you, and, this is evil. And then all of a sudden, Angelique is going to kill Le Marchand.
But he's protected by the pentagram on the floor.
But he's protected by the pentagram, which she doesn't go into because, she can't cross that circle. But then Delisle shows up, all bloodied and whatever, and runs at Angelique, throws himself into the pentagram and says, Exeunt omnia malefica, and she disappears along with Delisle.
And that's more magical words.
Yeah. And then Jacques is the one who comes back later, goes to the pentagram and summons her again, and that's when she becomes under his spell.
Huh. God, if that had been in the story, that would have made everything make a lot more sense.
Yeah. So I wonder if any of that was ever even filmed.
I think some parts were, because when you look at the theatrical trailer, there's a few shots here and there that tell me that probably got shot. There's a shot of a guy opening a book, a spell book that's described here in the thing when Jacques is opening the spell book to summon Angelique again in the script. And there's another scene in the theatrical trailer where you see a guy being thrown out of a window. I think that's Delisle.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's just basically half a second, though. So once you piece these things together, the more you know about the movie, the more you can piece everything together, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting about what happens there is when he comes back from being thrown out the window, in my mind's eye, I picture, how you can see, like, when somebody gets thrown through a plate glass window or whatever, like hunks of glass stuck in their face, in their cheeks, and in their forehead and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the way I picture him.
So this death scene with Jacques.
Can you tell me exactly where you're at? Because I fast forwarded a little bit to try to catch up.
Well, he's referring to the script.
She just pushed him down and she slashed his face on mine.
Yeah, yes. Angelique is biting his face right now.
I haven't gotten to that yet.
Biting his face.
I haven't gotten to the biting the face yet.
No, the guy from Community.
Yeah.
No, Parks and Rec. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Right
now.
She's got him up on the wall now.
She just bit his face on mine, so I'm gonna.
And now she's pulling him up the wall with her black eyes.
1.5 speed, a little bit more than.
With her little wimpy little arms, she's pushing this 150-pound guy.
Hey, she's got a demon hand going now.
Yeah, she's got that demon hand with the long fingernails and. This is so.
Sticks her finger in his cheek.
Joe, talk about the script about what was supposed to happen here.
Well, yeah. So Adam Scott's character's death, like Jacques, he was supposed to die of old age because there's a scene where she says, "Act your age." So basically he says, I don't want to go to America. I don't want to let you go to America because she said she wanted to go to America because she sees an article about the toy maker.
On the cover of that
on the cover of that architectural magazine for Merchant.
Hey, I can hear your text messages again.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, let me take that off. But anyway, so back to the script. So instead of killing him with her hand, yes, okay, I turned it off. Instead of killing him with her hand, and she's just holding his heart now, she would just age him like 200 years in just a few seconds. And so
because
for
he's
that,
standing in the way of hell.
Yeah, because, you see that he's still a young man, but he was a young man back in the 1700s, right?
Yeah.
So you imagine that the two of them have been together having sex and debauchery for the past 200 years.
In France.
Europe.
Yeah.
In Europe.
And so there was a mold. I think there's an image of a mold that was made for an old age makeup of Jacques.
I have video footage. Of that.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, hopefully Arrow, if they listen to this, maybe Arrow will be able to get in touch with you and put that in a future release. Yeah. So he was supposed to age, and it was going to be an age progression, dissolve thing, and he would turn into dust, and a little gust of wind would come in and blow the dust away like it usually happens.
Yeah. That's right out of the script.
But I guess with a gloved hand with the giant nails, it's probably cheaper to film it like that. So
he's just started doing his computer on mine.
Yeah,
effect was going to be done by Kevin Yeager in his shop, and when he left the company, he decided not to direct it. The other guy, Joe Chappelle, he's responsible for shooting that scene with Angelique killing Adam Scott like that.
So Ed, right now they're doing inside the building. He's got like the box panels and twirly things on the walls, and he's trying to get the lasers, which are really just lights in like a smoky environment, but he's trying to pass them as lasers, and he's not working. So there's a big dinner. He was supposed to do a demonstration of his new building, and it fails.
Yeah, you'll get it in 200 years.
Yeah, you were there in the seat and the set, right?
That location, that building, I believe, was the I Magnum, an old I Magnum location that was out of business, and they got permission to film in there, and the art direction crew went in there and they set up all those clockwork mechanisms that look like pieces of the box, gears and cogs and all that stuff. And that stuff was made out of a real thick type of foam core material called gator board, and it was covered like where it's supposed to be looking like brass or copper or whatever. That was like a foil paper that you could put over it. So it was all lightweight stuff that they were able to mount up on those walls, because the walls were like either cement or metal or whatever, it wasn't like conducive to building a clockwork mechanism on the walls. So it was all kind of jury rigged, and I'm surprised if you see this all in 4K in the theatrical release. I wonder how that looks, because it looks fine, I'm sure, from a certain distance with the camera. But if like me, I was there. If you walk up close, you can see all the rough edges and what things are really made out of. And the same thing with on the other sets, the space station set. I got to go on that one too.
So what was the iMagnum? Was that like a department store or a factory?
Yeah,
or
that's a big department store like Macy's or Capwell's or Gimbel's or something.
Some years ago, I was talking to Phil and Sarah about filming locations, and they did confirm a few things to me. So they said that this iMagnum building was at 3240 Wilshire Boulevard, where all the office sequences were also shot. So I think they're talking about when you see the architectural offices of Le Marchand's company, that is also at the iMagnum. Yeah. Right.
Except for there was one long corridor set built at the other location. I believe it used to be the spaghetti factory, and they turned it into a studio because that's where on the roof, sort of where they had you could drive up to the roof. There was like a parking garage. You could park cars up there, and the catering and the craft services and stuff was all up there outdoors. And it was a time of year when it was decent weather. So they didn't have to worry about rain or anything. But that building is where Le Marchand's, chateau interiors were. That's where, Gary Tunnicliffe had his makeup trailer, and, where they would do the Pinhead makeup and everything, where Angelique had a trailer, and, all the gamblers and stuff. I met all the gamblers. They were all standing in line to get food at the catering truck, and they had all their old-fashioned clothes on and everything. It was really cool to see them all in person.
I'm sure, yeah. So the old A1 pasta factory was located at 8985 Venice Boulevard, and that also acted as a production office of Elysium Entertainment Incorporated for the whole shoot.
Yeah, I think down on the ground floor was the offices, and there was space, up on the top. It was a big open, interior that they turned into corridors of the space station. And originally, if you look at the story, if you look at the script, the space station was supposed to be carved out of asteroids, out of rock.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So we've got the sequence now where Sharp, the guy called Sharp, is at the gates of hell. So this guy who bumps into Angelique, and she takes him down into the basement of the building. And we see, of course, at the end of Hellraiser 3, right, that Joey puts the box inside a bunch of cement. Yeah. And it turns out it's this building. So Angelique took him downstairs to the basement and took the box out of the pillar of cement. And there he goes, straight into hell.
I wonder if she regretted, summoning Pinhead at this point, after this.
You mean with getting the box out of the pillar and opening it up and stuff? Yeah,
because then, he after this, it's sort of a battle of wits between her and him, and she's wanting Le Marchand to complete his thing to trap Pinhead so that she can rule hell instead of him. And
so you bring up an interesting point.
In the script, what does it say about this thing of her grabbing the box out of the pillar? Is that in the script that Pete wrote?
Yeah, let me check that. While I check that, I can also say something about the producer, Nancy Ray Stone, for this movie. I think this was maybe her first production, and she didn't have a lot of experience.
I know the story you're about to say. No, it wasn't her first production. It was just that she was on bigger budget productions.
Right, bigger budget. So this was the first kind of smaller production that she was doing. And so she one day calls Peter Atkins after reading the script and so, we don't have enough money to make this movie. Just the effects alone would be, millions of dollars. And Pete said, millions of dollars? Gee, who did you call? Industrial Light and Magic? And she's like, yeah.
Yeah, she quoted him. She quoted him a specific figure that was really, really high.
That's crazy. Yeah.
But, it literally was 5 times the whole film's budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the script for this scene, let's see what happens here.
Which, if you think about it, if ILM had done it, of course the effects would be awesome. But, did it warrant that? It was going to be a theatrical movie release, but, you need to have $70-80 million,
Yeah.
Yeah. So this part was in the script. Sharp, going to the basement. She gives him the box, and he opens it, and Pinhead shows up. Yep.
So I wonder what was her motivation for doing that, because she's at odds with Pinhead throughout the whole movie after that.
Right. I mean, she's
might
surprised.
Have been expecting something else.
Yeah, I guess so.
Expecting something else.
We haven't talked about her clowns.
Yes, exactly, Nina. So when I think she was trying to open the door to go back to hell and see her clowns, because it says when the door opens, when the wall opens here in the script, Angelique looks a little confused, stares at Pinhead and said, "Things changed. I was expecting my clowns." And Pinhead says that line that he puts in the movie, "Hell is ordered since your time, and much less amusing."
Yeah.
Wow, that is a very important little piece right there, because it makes no sense otherwise. Why is Angelique look the way she looks? How is Pinhead know her name is Princess?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And also, that scene would go on for longer, and there's a little more information about their plans for Le Marchand and their plans for the building that he built. He says, he says that Pinhead says, "Imagine that panel frozen in the position of a moment ago. This isn't a room; it's a Holocaust waiting to wake itself." And then Angelique would look around, and he'd be like, "A lament configuration on the scale." And Pinhead says, "A vast and permanent gateway to the fields of human flesh." So that was the plan, right?
So that makes a lot more sense. It's like, what the hell are they trying to do? What is Angelique trying to do? What is Pinhead here trying to do? Why would he kidnap a little boy? You know?
Yeah. So Angelique wants to use it to trap Pinhead, but Pinhead wants to use it to make a permanent gateway to hell. So, like, they want it for different. That's how I understood it, at least in this Workprint version, right? That
but
they want
Angelique
it for different purposes.
But I think Angelique wants to use it against Pinhead after the story progresses a little more. Yeah, for
just
now
to take over, to have complete control. But also think about it after Hellraiser 3, when Pinhead has been separated into two parts, one good, one bad, so to speak, and then at the end of 3, he's melded back together.
Yeah.
And do you anticipate in 3 that he goes back into that pillar?
That's an interesting question. I guess you could see it that way.
Movie, where is he coming from? He's coming from the labyrinth.
He's coming from the labyrinth, correct. Yeah. Yes.
Here comes Grandma.
And so has he been reunited back into one Pinhead from 3 to 4?
Yeah, I would say so.
That's what I thought. Yeah, he's the normal reunited.
Okay, let me bring this up because this is important. You see, there's a dream that he's having now, the merchant. He's having a dream, and he's seeing the death of the card players that his ancestors saw, and he's seeing,
which is the first and only use of this footage.
Yeah.
Right, and look at this grandma scene. The little kid is drawing on the floor, and one of the pages had a Hellraiser box design. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like one of the Cenobium early covers.
Yeah, exactly.
That was my artwork.
And we've talked about this.
It was a box alone on a, of course it was a kid's version, but it was a box alone on a blank sheet.
We've talked about this before on, on commentary for this for the theatrical cut, but the actress playing Merchant's wife is kind of a weak link in this film.
Yeah, you know who she used to be was on Smallville. She was the mother of Clark Kent.
Oh,
that actress.
Nice.
Redhead, kind of strawberry blonde.
I haven't seen Smallville.
I love this sequence with Pinhead holding a dove that they used for the cover of the DVD. It's really nice.
Yeah, now, in a way, I always thought, like, okay, we're in a building. What is there, pigeons and doves in the building, and Pinhead just grabbed one?
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, if you start asking questions like that, I mean, when he summons, when Sharps opens the box, you see at the basement of the building, like, the cracks and the slats behind the walls, but it's a new building made of concrete. It's not made out of stucco or anything like that. It's just for ambience.
Yeah, the building code is really bad in this town.
One thing this Workprint was missing was the Cheddar Beast eating the dove after Pinhead releases her.
Is that theatrical?
I guess it was a later effect shot that they did. They hadn't made that effects shot for this one.
Well, yeah, and so it was an interesting editorial choice they made with this, right? To not cut it in with theatrical footage, which they could have done, like they did with Nightbreed.
That's right. Right. And where did this Workprint come from, you might ask? Well, when Joshua Milliken was talking about Septum, his book, in one of our last episodes, he said that what was that, Ryan? He got in touch with Arrow and Kevin Yeager, and Kevin Yeager told him he had this Workprint, right?
Yeah. So it seemed like he was implying that.
Why was he getting in touch with Kevin Yeager?
Well, it's been a few weeks, so I don't remember that exactly. But if you guys go back and listen to the episode with Josh Milliken, he does tell that story.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's where it came from.
What were you going to say, Ryan?
Well, yeah, it seemed like he was implying that Kevin Yeager provided the footage to Arrow.
Workprint.
Yeah.
Workprint.
Yeah. Even though this is not, like I said at the beginning, it's not his director's cut, and this definitely has reshoots with
from Joe Chappelle.
Yeah.
And also the effects not done by Kevin Yeager's company. Like, in other words, that whole thing with Angelique being a thin, hollow skin, that was not Kevin Yeager's company. And the whole thing with Jacques, being killed by Angelique with the hooked hand fingers, and pulling his heart out. That was not shot by Kevin Yeager's company. Because I was at Kevin Yeager's workshop and I saw 2 copies of what, Adam Scott's old age body would have looked like. And it was rigged on a thing where it was like hinged. So, it would be standing upright, like right next to you. And then if you were to just push it or let it go, it would fall on the floor and shatter into a million pieces because it was made out of a special, extremely brittle, material.
One thing I would like to bring up here is that this work print explains a lot more about the dynamic and the plan that Angelique has, in the sense that when she visits Le Marchand at his architectural company office, he shows her an old thing that he has framed on the wall, right? The Elysium configuration.
Artwork,
Yeah, artwork. And then he shows her the file that he's working on, a simulation on his computer to trap light eternally and create like a way to a design based on what his ancestor was trying to make, a box to close the door to hell. And that's why she gets scared at what he's working on, and that's why she wants to control and steer him away from that. And when she can't steer him away,
was the one that suggested that to him originally.
Right, exactly. His atheist friend, which we'll see further in the movie. But what I was trying to say is that Angelique at this point already knows that there is a chance that Le Marchand could succeed in making this Elysium configuration, and then she understands also that she could use this against Pinhead, maybe get rid of him and take over her place as the Queen of Hell.
Right.
Yeah. Because you'll see that, Pinhead keeps telling her, what secrets is he giving you? It's like he knows that something's up. Pinhead knows that something's up.
Interestingly enough, this film overall, you think about all the flaws, of course, with the Alan Smithy version, that was theatrically released, and the what we're watching, these work prints and things, and the script, and you think to yourself like, wow, what could have been, what if, they had actually shot Pete's script. But one of the crazy things about this whole production is, like you were saying, Joe, that there was a woman who was a producer who was brought on, I don't know exactly when, but Pete tells the story that it was about 3 weeks before production began that he gets a call like at the 11th hour, kind of late at night. It was like after 9-10 p.m., I believe. And this woman is kind of pissed off, and she's saying, your script is going to cost, the effects budget alone is going to cost 5 times what the whole budget is. And Pete kind of laughs it off and says, where did you go for a quote?
We already said that.
The point is that that's how dumb they were, is that when you get a movie greenlit, first thing you do is budget it. Before you even submit it, it's often budgeted. So that, anyone who knows that script, in the offices of Miramax would have, or Dimension or wherever, would have said, oh, that script is going to cost X amount for all the effects. And, why would this person who's the producer just be finding out how much the budget for the effects are going to be at that 11th hour? That's so bad.
Well, and the fact that they had hired an effects guy for the director, I mean, that should have...
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that Pete told her.
Ironically, in the beginning, when they were first discussing it, Kevin Yeager said, well, I want continuity of the makeup effects on Pinhead, so we're going to bring back the same guy, Gary Tunnicliffe, but I'll do certain effects myself, like the dog he did. And, the drum that, Auguste's face was going to be stretched on. He did that, and there was other things too, but anyway.
Yeah, so the way this movie got made, and I want to thank Rob Ridenauer because he also wrote some stuff on our blog. One of them was that an outline wasn't required because both Atkins and Barker were familiar with the executives of Miramax from Hellraiser 3, and the studio wanted to make another film. So they greenlit this on an initial meeting that took the form of a pitch presentation where they both, Pete and Clive fired off ideas, and Miramax gave him the green light.
To go write the script.
Yeah.
Once the script was written, then they greenlit that shooting script.
Exactly. Yeah. That comes, I think, from the Paul Kane book, The Hellraiser Films and Their Legacy. So, yeah. And Pete has said many times that the idea to make it as 3 different stories came from Clive. 3 different time periods. Yeah.
Right.
And I saw...
But when they started slashing pages out of the script, that's where they were taking them from the various time periods that would be expensive.
What were you going to say, Ryan?
Yeah, and so I saw at the book signing for Thief of Always. It was right after Hellraiser 3 had come out, and somebody had asked him, what the heck happened with Hellraiser 3? And he said, yeah, you should never make 3 movies of anything. He said, just look at Return of the Jedi. They blew up the Death Star again. He said, look at Alien 3.
Yeah.
He said, but we're trying something different with the 4th Hellraiser movie. So, keep an eye out for that one.
Yes.
Well, he was optimistic at that point.
Yeah,
because,
exactly.
They had come up with those 3 time periods as the storyline.
Yeah.
And that was great. I mean, if you read the script, you read that little book there that Joe's got, it's a great read.
Yeah. No, it was, at that, exactly. At that time, it was, it had so much promise. And I think this gets us a lot closer to being able to see what they had in mind, this work print.
I agree.
Well, what's nice is to be able to have Pete's script and be able to refer to that, to have this work print, to have the theatrical release, to have that other work print that's out there as well,
Yeah. And something that Joe Blow mentioned on that video that you sent us was an interesting idea, was if somebody would make an animated version of the script.
Here. That's a great idea.
That would be really cool. It probably wouldn't happen, but that's
the fan edit. Fan edit.
Yeah.
Well, not the fan edit. He's talking about an actual animated version of the script, like from beginning to end.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Because a fan did try to make a few things with one of those pre-visualization softwares that he put on YouTube, but it's just terrible. It looks terrible.
Well, I've been involved with many, what would be considered, amateur or fan-made animated films and things. And, an ambitious group of people over years could do it,
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Pink 5 stuff that had a lot of production value.
So here's a little bit more dynamic between Le Marchand and his wife. And then because Angelique called him, and he's like, oh, I told you never to call me here. And there's like, oh, Japanese customer, no sense of time. And now he's in a room like with Angelique, and she's got her hands on his forehead, and she's helping him remember and stuff. It's very seductive.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's right kind of at the line of being seduced, but not quite there. It's kind of
his
like...
His wife definitely notices something's up.
Yeah, but he's not quite...
Slightly more softcore.
Hang on.
He's not quite seduced, though. It's kind of more in the fact that she's awakening all these memories that he's and he's trying to make sense of it. I think, it's not. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's
Wasn't
the blood.
The script more seduction, more almost close to on-screen sex?
Well, I didn't really read the whole script, Ed, so I can't keep going back to the script because I don't know it by heart. But there's scenes. The scenes we see in the movie are in the script as well. Yeah. There are, all these things where she's trying to help him. Even the grandmother scene is in here. There's a grandmother scene in here.
It's in my to-read pile also. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Like the grandmother scene, you're the one they're waiting for. That was in Peter Atkins' script originally too. So, this is the time when Bobby, Merchant's wife, goes to do the laundry, and Pinhead has found that he's going to find out what Merchant is plotting with that building, what secret he has with the princess. And he decides to do that by kidnapping the son.
Man, Pinhead knocked over every single chair in their house.
He destroyed everything.
Yeah.
Cool
Is
house,
that the
though.
way it was in the script too?
Yeah.
He goes in their apartment.
Yeah.
So this, I struggle a little bit with, Pinhead got his humanity back in Hellraiser 3, and yet, here he is kidnapping children.
Attacking a child.
Yeah.
I think it still makes sense because in all the horrible things he's done in Hellraiser 1 and 2, right? I mean,
no, Hellraiser 1 and 2 was all about, what he was doing to Frank. Frank kind of deserved it.
Yeah. I guess it does, walk into a kind of a tropey villain character.
It goes back to the idea of like, Imogene Borman in 2, where it's like, it's not hands that call us, it is desire.
Yeah. He doesn't really hurt the kid either. He just says he wants bait. So he knows that by taking his son, he's going to make sure that he does whatever he says.
He's giving him some motivation.
Yeah.
Motivation, yeah.
You almost wonder if the evil Pinhead from Hellraiser 3 won the war, between the two.
Yeah, in a way.
Or if Spencer went to heaven or something like that.
Maybe,
that would be cool.
Yeah.
This is the part where, being a fan, you can do your own head canon for a lot of this stuff.
You can extrapolate and think about it.
We could ask Pete Atkins too.
A lot of times, I used to do that. I'd ask Pete about things, and he'd say, like, I don't know. At the time, I was just trying to get a paycheck. It's like,
yeah. Here's more footage. Of Angelique realizing that she can't seduce the merchant, so she's going to force him.
Well, and Pete Atkins doesn't sit there and study these movies, and keep watching them after the fact like we do. Obviously,
he doesn't.
Yeah,
he hasn't seen a lot of these movies.
There's a lot of unseen footage here. We even see Merchant run down the street, walk into his own building, go up the stairs. Yeah. And we didn't see this in the theatrical.
Right. And in the theatrical cut, it almost looks like a made-for-TV movie, the way it all looks like it's filmed indoors, Well,
that was part of one of the complaints that in the beginning when Kevin Yeager, hired people that he wanted to work with and stuff like cinematographers or whatever, they said the footage that was coming in looked like a TV movie, and it's true that up until that time, he had only directed like Tales from the Dark Side. I mean, Tales from the Crypt, the Crypt Keeper, sequences and like second unit on Child's Play and stuff.
Right.
So it might have looked that way, and that's what you're looking at and seeing there.
I think I remember this kind of aesthetic from the 90s that a lot of horror movies had, where they had a lot of, close-ups. The movie went closer up to the characters in certain movies. You'd see more mid shots from the waist up, or actual close-ups of their faces, or and I was watching Tales from the Crypt a while ago because I was going through a kind of a marathon of Tales from the Crypt, and some of the episodes that were from Kevin Yeager, I did notice that this directing style is very similar. It was giving me flashbacks to this,
like a mid shot, a close up, and then a tighter close up and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, and about Nancy Ray Stone, the producer for this film, you know what she's doing now? She is working at the California Film Commission. She oversees the California Film and Television Tax Credit Program. So she's a big deal now.
Interesting.
What do you think about this hallway full of stuff that he walks down?
Is he in the laundry room hallway? Like altered by Pinhead?
Yeah, with the chains and weird things.
At a hallway.
No, he's gone to his building.
Are you looking at the hallway where it's got like guts and chains and rib cages and stuff? Okay. Yeah. I was on that set. I know what that set looks like. What it is it's a mock-up in the studio. It's a studio set. It's not at the iMagnum building like the rest of all that stuff was shot. And it's intended to be like a dolly track, a big long dolly track, where only one side of the hallway was built and detailed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, hey, when there was that security guard sequence where they go into a hallway and it looks like they're actually just on a soundstage, it looks like someone flipped over the back of sets that you can see the the slats,
the things that hold the set up and stuff.
Up, yeah. Is that what they did? They just flipped over a set and just made it look like a hallway?
That was all done. All that stuff with those two blonde actors that played the security guards. That was all shot after Kevin Yeager left. That was Joe Chappelle.
Oh.
And so, for all I know, yeah, you're right. It could have been just a warehouse or something, you know.
Yeah, because it looks like that. So here's Pinhead.
Don't care for the way that those guards are killed. I saw that stuff, you know, and so I know that the effects, you know, were not up to Kevin Yeager's, you know, or Gary Tunnicliffe's, you know, abilities.
Sure. I mean, this hallway is a little, you know, it's a little funny to look at. It's not
wonky.
You see that?
It's a little
wonky. It's a little. It's a set. It's obviously a set.
Well, they couldn't do that to a corridor inside the iMagnum building where it's going to be eventually opened up again for offices. And
what kills me is just all the slats and the broken up stucco, and it's like, this is a concrete building. It doesn't it doesn't do that.
Yeah, it's like they had to make it Hellraiser, you know, branding.
Yeah, and lights coming in from both sides of the hallway, from holes in both sides. So it's like, where's that light coming from?
There's Christmas lights behind the wall.
That's hell light.
Yeah. Yes, it's the Dead Lights from Stephen King.
Right.
But one of the other cool things was when I was there, you know, like, remember you were saying that there was initially in Pete's story, you know, script, there's a big book of magic spells and stuff that are used to bring the Angelique demon, you know, to Earth. Mm-hmm. And on the day I was visiting the set, there was a rush out call for, you know, that book. Like, in other words, they forgot to make that book. And somebody had to throw one together real quick, you know, because I don't think it was going to be zoomed in on or focused on, but they needed to have it on set to open and flip through and stuff, you know, in a medium to long shot. And so that somebody got a hold of one of those. You ever go to like the public library and they have these big, thick, hardbound books full of like, you know, maps or, you know, just tons and tons of real thin tissuey paper, you know, that are, you know, statistics or whatever. They got a hold of a book like that from some old defunct library somewhere, and it was, you know, 3 or 4 people attacked it all at once with like coffee and tea and stuff like that to stain the pages brown and make it aged looking, and I was asked to help, and so you know that was fun. You know, the day when I happened to be there, that I got to help out a little bit, you know, with the art department, you know.
So this is a standoff between Merchant and Pinhead.
Yeah.
And you can tell that Bruce Ramsey is wearing a wig in this one, because I think this was a reshoot. I think at that time he had shaved his head already, so they had to put a wig on him. That's why his hair looks a little weird. It looks a little flat.
But in that time period, a lot of people wore wigs. So.
Yeah.
And this kid's elevator ride is taking way longer than it should. It's like
it's going to hell.
Yeah.
One-way elevator to hell.
Yeah.
Like in Aliens, we're on a one-way ticket to hell.
And this whole movie has that temp score. They did put stuff here from Hellbound, music from Hellbound.
Yeah. And I think from Hellraiser 1 in another part of the movie. Yeah.
Tell us about the Chatterbeast, Ed.
Is being chased
by
the Chatterbeast. Well, the wife's being chased by her down the hall.
I got to go visit Kevin Yeager's workshop and got a special tour and was allowed, you know, to videotape the whole thing, you know. And what it was, you know, they built a man in a suit costume to be worn for the Chatterbeast. Mm-hmm. And the head, the person wearing it, you know, they would be, their eyes and their nose and their mouth and stuff would be pointing down at the ground, and in the head of the Chatterbeast mask, there was like some black leather strips, you know, like dog collar type of stuff, and in that black strip was like a mesh panel that the person inside would have their face painted black, like you've probably seen pictures of, you know, Peter Mayhew with black stuff all around his eyes from when he was playing Chewbacca. Well, they had to do that, you know, for the guy who was going to wear it. But, you know, the rest of it, a lot of it was animatronic. Like the ears could move animatronically, the mouth could open and close, you know.
Yeah. So how do you think they made it chatter? Would that be like some hand
Radio
inside
control.
the? Oh, okay.
No, it was radio control. It
You
had a
remember
motor.
back in the day, there was a little kit that someone made for the chatter. Was it you that did that?
I don't know. I can't remember.
There used to be a Chatter Beast kit that came out.
Oh, that. Yeah.
That's you, yeah.
That's me.
Yeah, that's great. That was a great kit. And then for NECA, they made the Chatter Beast, and they made it just like the one that you had made.
No, not really. If you saw them side by side, the one that they made is really small. You know,
it is
in
really
the palm
small.
of your hand.
Yeah,
and the one
mean,
that I made was like 16 inches. You know, from tip of nose to tip of tail. You know, it was big one.
How did you had pictures for reference, and how did you remember?
Video. I
From
got
the
to
workshop,
go.
yeah.
I got to go to the workshop and see everything and videotape everything, and you know, with the assistance of having an object in the frame, like a lot of the time in Japan they would use like a pack of cigarettes because with a pack of cigarettes sitting next to the head, then when you get home you can take that same pack of cigarettes and figure out how long the head is exactly.
Oh yeah, you get the scale of it. Yeah. So let me just go to this important moment that we're seeing now. It's where Angelique has taken Jack as hostage, and she is telling Le Marchand to try to catch Pinhead inside the...
Yeah, this is totally different from the theatrical version, right?
It's slightly different, yeah. It's a little different.
Well, the concept's the same, that you cannot stand in the way of hell.
Yeah, so she's laughing because she's like, oh, and this... I never saw this before. Pinhead shoots a chain out of his mouth. This is preliminary effects, but it looks pretty good, right? He goes up to the ceiling to escape the vortex that's created inside the square instead of a circle. But unfortunately, the technology isn't up to snuff yet for merchants, so this is overloading. And Pinhead is doing his stand. Just as the overload is closing the portal, he chains Angelique and sends her back to hell. That's a really good... this is in the script, too. That Pinhead jumps up to the ceiling, stays there like a spider, looking down.
Yeah, I can't believe, Pete wrote that, and he must have been thinking, how the hell are they going to do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
this is where...
Angelique, in that part, what is Angelique wearing? She's not the Angelique Cenobite yet.
No, she's wearing like a black... blazer and skirt suit.
Then the next time we see her, she's a Cenobite.
She's a Cenobite, yeah. So this is where poor Bruce Ramsey gets his head cut off.
That also should have cut his hands off.
That's true. It should have cut his fingers.
Because he's holding on to the chain with his hands.
That's right. Man, I saw this movie in the theater in Portugal. I saw the European premiere. It was at a festival called Fantas Porto in Portugal, and Doug Bradley was there. Wow. He introduced the movie. I got to meet him again that day, and I had to go. You remember when you had to go to the movie theater and wait in line for the ticket booth to open so you could buy your tickets?
Yep.
I went there a couple hours before the box office would open, and I just stayed there because I wanted to get really good tickets. So I got tickets for, the first row.
Nice.
And so it was a good time. I liked the movie. I mean, at the time, I did feel like maybe it could have been better in certain things. It was a little confusing, but I mean, this was 94, so almost 30 years, like you said. Ed. Nowadays, I know a lot more about this, and it makes a lot more sense to me.
Well, and
I saw the theatrical release.
Yeah. Here's the future.
And it's frustrating that people want a director's cut when there's not, it can't be done. You just can't. It can't be made.
Not without doing a bunch of new material, like with animation or something.
Yeah.
Finger puppets.
Right. Or a remake.
Well,
here's the Minos.
It sure begs for something to be done,
Yeah.
In the future segment, we see little animated segments of the Minos space station, and it looks like it's already a cube floating in space next to a couple of planets.
Yeah.
And and you see these plates, because originally the script, this was going to be a mining kind of space station, right? That was going to be built on an asteroid. And
well, there was going to be multiple asteroids all, hovering near each other. And the biggest one, the main one, would be where they used, giant lasers and hollowed out chunks and made corridors and stuff. But the reason for the other little asteroids was there was going to be like satellites with like, dish antennas and stuff that looked like the box. Like, in other words, how the brass etched, panels on the box look, right?
Yeah.
Well, imagine a miniature, model where that brass etched panel is part of like a dish, antenna that's mounted on the asteroid, so that, originally the idea was going to be that they were going to beam light, like a laser or whatever, from reflecting off of antenna to antenna to antenna to antenna to create the Elysium configuration, not a giant opening and closing space station box.
Yeah, I like the theatrical part of the space station transforming. I thought that was also pretty clever. It was well made. So obviously the past segment was the one that got cut the most for budget, but they still do flashbacks throughout the entire movie. We just saw future Merchant flashing back to the time when Auguste told him that he could make, he's like, you made a box that could bring forth demons. Well, make another box that can close that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this is his mission now. This descendant of Merchant is the last of the bloodline. He even dresses kind of like Pinhead, right? He's got kind of like a black suit with like almost like a priestly collar.
Head bald, so he looked kind of like Pinhead. And he's got the long robe, black robes, kind of like a priest.
And now he's got the holographic priest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all new footage, not done by Kevin Yeager again.
Who was the priest? Was that Robert Wisdom?
You mean the actor playing the priest?
Yeah.
I don't know. That was all shot after Kevin Yeager left the production with Joe Chappelle.
Yeah. But I like this idea that now with AI and stuff, that he would have like this confessionary in the space station where he could talk. I mean, look at it. When you go to mines, right? A lot of mines have chapels in them. Like, Sarah went to a mine in Poland where they have a beautiful chapel all carved out inside the mine.
Well, so many people have died in mines and have had accidents and cave-ins that I can see that,
So... Yep. So we're seeing,
and you could also see on that there's a rocky interior sometimes in the on the interiors of the space station that they can't quite get away from. Even though on the outside they don't really show it attached to an asteroid anymore.
Right, but if you knew that, that the concept was that the corridors were all whittled out of giant lasers, cutting corridors in the rock, to make the space station interiors.
I'm fascinated about this particular descendant of Le Marchand because he's so determined, right? He's got such resolve. He's dedicated his entire life. And you get the feeling, of course, there's a trope about every single descendant of a guy in a movie looks like the same guy played by the same actor.
Because it is.
Yeah. Because it is, yeah. But in this case, I just feel like every time, every new descendant, it's almost like he gets more knowledge about what's going on.
Yeah, through the blood. Through the
blood, right?
Yeah. And this one, like, he knew he was going to be the one to solve it. He didn't even bother to have any heirs.
Well, the little boy is the one who grows up to be this guy.
Is he? Or is that or was that...
I don't know that this is Jack.
I thought that was like 200 years ago.
Yeah, it might not be Jack, yeah. So here are the Space Marines coming in to board the space station because he hijacked it and took it out of orbit for his own purposes.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, they look like low-rent, aliens characters.
Oh, boy, do they.
Yeah.
They don't even have space helmets. They got fireman helmets with the visor that goes down.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Like Colonial Marines, basically.
Yeah.
But you know the story about these characters with what Pete wrote?
Yeah, the names. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
one of the guys named is Carducci, right?
Right.
Well, Mark Carducci is a good friend of Pete's, another writer who wrote Pumpkinhead, the original movie Pumpkinhead. So Pete, often throws names of characters in of other, people, writers, friends, things like that.
And of course, Rimmer.
For Phil Rimmer from
could
Dog
be,
Company.
From Red Dwarf.
No, it's from Phil Rimmer from the Dog Company.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's talked about that in the podcast as well. He mentioned all those things. Just like originally Inspector Ronson from Hellbound was supposed to be Inspector Gillette. But they're both, companies that make lighters and blades, Ronson and Gillette. So,
yeah, that's an obscure one.
Yeah, that's a deep cut.
Computer animated puzzle box. That's interesting. It looks
pretty good for the time.
Yeah, it's interesting because they didn't need to do that, right? I mean, that could have all been done practical.
Yeah.
It seems like it seemed like they were showing off. I don't know why. Why did they go that route?
I think you can safely assume that because Terminator 2 had come out 91, 92?
Yeah. 92.
CG was not very popular like it is now,
Yeah, it wasn't very popular with effects artists, but movies were incorporating it. So I think this is one of those.
Yeah.
Even Hellraiser 3 had some.
Sure. Yeah, when the ice turns into a dagger and kills someone.
Yeah. Or Alien 3 with the alien running on the ceiling and stuff.
Here's another testament.
The dog is supposed to be like the alien in the Alien 3. Like they built a puppet of the dog, and they were going to have a rod puppet, where they would, blue screen or, remove, green screen or whatever you call it, to remove the rods so that they could run the dog along. And eventually in the final, version that we all know, the Alan Smithy cut, it's got some scenes of the dog running that are CGI.
Yeah, down the hallway. And I think there was also a little puppet dog, right? For some of those scenes.
You don't see it. It's not in any cut that I've ever seen. It never got finished, to my knowledge. I have video of it, the foam latex casting unfinished, in Kevin Yeager's workshop, but, and which helped me to make my puppet. I mean, my, model kit.
I would like to bring up at this point another little bit of detail that Pete Atkins wrote into the script, which I think shows his attention to detail. The space station is called the Minos, right? And the space shuttle that arrives at the Minos is called the Theseus. So Theseus was the guy who went into Minos's, the King Minos labyrinth to fight the Minotaur. So there's that thematic thing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a lot of the names of spaceships and stuff in the alien world, Prometheus and, the Nostromo and,
Demeter.
Ridley Scott likes to do that too, use names like that.
One thing that I always thought was a little weird when I saw the movie is why is Pinhead just staying inside that closed room? I mean, it's not like you could just close a door and he'd be trapped. But then now that I've seen all the times that there's circles and pentagrams and stuff, maybe this merch as a certain circle around it. I wish they would have made a circle or something like a sigil around that vault that would explain why they can't leave, because that would make more sense to me.
What's the deal with that?
Even if they did that, I wish that there would be dialogue to explain it.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that guard smacking him in the face with the gun?
It's supposed to be like a tough hombre,
Yeah, he was completely overreacting. And
absolutely.
And another thing that I always wondered about this movie is these new Cenobites that Pinhead brought over, like Angelique and the twins. They've apparently endured for 200 years, between the events of the middle of the movie and to now. But what happened? What happened to the Cenobites from Hellraiser 3? They didn't even make it, from the events of Hellraiser 3 until the new movie, until Hellraiser 4.
Right. Well, I think in my book, at least, I think Chatterer gets killed, right? Chatterer and the female Cenobite get killed in Hellraiser 2. I think in Hellraiser 3 they get sent to hell, right? When
they get,
Joey
So
fixes
you
the
mean
box.
Pete Atkins' Cenobite is down there in the labyrinth?
Yeah, they get reassigned.
Barbie.
They got new jobs.
Probably.
Barbie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I guess.
He's got a what do they call that? A little cell, a cubicle.
Well, obviously they already had created new Cenobites for this movie, so they're going to use those. They wanted to show off the new Cenobites.
Yeah.
So I understand
And,
that.
boy,
Well,
I
Pinhead
tell you
came
what,
over with just one, right? Just the Chatterbeast, and then he created the other ones.
His dog, his pet dog. But, I'll tell you what, one thing about this movie, all of its flaws and all the different versions and everything, the art direction, the design, like of the Angelique Cenobite and stuff, everyone agrees she is one of the best Cenobites ever.
Oh, yeah, she definitely is.
She's a great character. I mean, period.
Yeah, she's a Gary Tunnicliffe creation.
Yeah, good actress, good casting.
Even before she's a Cenobite, she's a great character.
I see a lot of her in Gasp.
The new Cenobite Gasp.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
And, also the fact that she has her real voice in this work print, don't you agree that her real voice is great? It's sexy. It should have been used.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, that was unnecessary. And I wonder if they just cheaped out and didn't want to bring her back for ADR like what happened with Nightbreed.
It often is that.
I think you're right, yeah.
They just get someone local from LA or whatever.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I wonder what was the time scale for this work print, because this one already has a lot of finished kills and finished effects shots. This must have been like one of those later stage work prints, just as they were almost finishing the movie.
Right, and it would be good to be able to ask Kevin Yeager some of those details, like where did you get this? Why did they give this to you after you had left the production and Joe Chappelle had already shot a bunch of footage that's in this? So what's the story with how this came into Kevin's hands, and then how did it come into Arrow's hands from Kevin?
Yeah, maybe we can get him to come back on the podcast. That would be good.
Well, he's never come on the podcast other than you guys ran into him at Texas Frightmare, and he was willing to sit down on the floor and give you a quick interview.
That's not quite accurate. We actually had planned to interview him, and he agreed to do it. But then on the day that we were going to do it, he was already leaving the hotel. And that's why he just decided to do it right there, in a section of the hotel.
I'm so glad it worked out. That's one of the few interviews, like even to this day, when you look up, Bloodline and Kevin Yeager, that's one of the few interviews that's out there.
Right. But
and
this was
great if somebody made a documentary just about this movie and got him to sit down and give tons of anecdotes and information.
Yeah,
because it's history.
I'll put a link back to that on the show notes. That was a great interview.
Yes.
Yeah. That we had one YouTube commenter on there that was like, "Why is the interviewer looking at his phone the whole time?" Like, his questions were on the phone. Come on.
There's always one that has to complain.
Yeah.
You give them even this work print. It's like stuff that everybody's been whining and complaining. Like, oh, where's this? Where's that? And it's like you come up with something that nobody else has ever gotten or seen.
Yeah.
And they still complain.
Yeah.
So there were 4 different attempts by Yeager to appease the producers. So these 4 cuts time schedules. I mean, ultimately we got something that was like 80 minutes, right? But he had one that was like 110 minutes. I got this stuff off of like Fangoria's articles and stuff over the years.
Uh-huh.
Miramax wanted Pinhead to come in sooner, of course, because the movie would open up in the past segment, so we wouldn't see Pinhead until the present segment.
And when you say Miramax, do you mean the Weinsteins?
The Weinsteins.
Yeah. They wanted the movie to have a happy ending, which Merchant escapes with the lady, the Marine in the spaceship, and
And that's
the way. And basically, Yeager left. Let me just finish.
He wrote it that way too, right?
Ed, let me finish.
A happy ending.
Yeah. Well, no. So Yeager left the project after he found it hopeless. He said this ended up becoming a constant battle between the art and the money. So a new team was brought in, which was writer Rand Ravitch and director Joe Chappelle. So Rand Ravitch had written for Candyman 2. Joe Chappelle had written for Halloween 6. And they brought a new director of photography, Tony Palmieri, to do 2 more weeks of reshoots. And then these reshoots were done in May of 1995. And that's when they also re-edited the movie, and they opened the movie in the future segment, which I think was always a confusing thing because you see the future in the opening of the movie with him summoning the Cenobites, and then when we go back to the future near the end of the movie, we see him do the same thing again twice. Bring Pinhead, solve the box and bring him back. So that's just because they wanted Pinhead to be in the movie at the beginning,
Yeah, that's terrible. Because they greenlit a script that Pinhead wasn't in the beginning.
Yeah.
That's their fault,
I love this mirror sequence. They
cost themselves a ton of money by screwing up like that.
I do too.
It's like what Disney's been doing nowadays as well. Spending $200-300 million on a movie and then having to completely reshoot it.
Yeah. Yeah, interestingly, Godzilla -1 only cost like $15 million, and it's making a ton of money.
Yes! Japan is kicking America's ass at the box office. Same thing with the new, was it Miyazaki's new animated film?
Yeah. Right.
Did we lose Joe?
No, I'm still here. I was just going to say, at the end of the script, I was going back to the script to let you know. So there's no happy ending at the end of the script. The ending of the script is more like what we're going to see now. So Merchant sacrifices himself to stand off with Pinhead.
To blow up with the
Yes.
So and one thing that I don't care for is the twins, the way that they separate and then smush their bodies onto somebody to kill them. I don't know. I mean, the Joe
they
Blow
absorb him.
Yeah, Joe Blow thought that was cool, and I'm like, I don't think that's cool. I think that's like, you have plenty of time to run away while they're doing that.
Right.
I mean, I guess Pinhead could have stopped him from running away, but
and it's CGI too. It's early CGI, that they used for that.
I mean, I understand the problems of coming up with new Cenobites and figuring out ways for them to work and stuff. It's like, look at the problems with number 3, camera head. I'm going to stab you with my lens,
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess we don't, I don't know. Maybe that's a problem that I have with horror movies in general, is that, going over the top, trying to think of inventive ways to kill people. And this was sort of an argument I was getting in with somebody over that most recent audio commentary we did on the
God Monsters?
No, the Last Dead movie, the Survival of the Dead.
Right.
Because it got silly, and he.
It's a bad movie.
He was saying, well, you just don't. He was saying you just don't understand it because it's supposed to be silly, and it's like, no, I understand it's supposed to be silly. I just don't like that.
I agree.
Yeah,
that's a bad movie.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to Bloodline.
Yes.
There's so much more we could talk about. Is it over?
No. Yeah, Angelique just took the puzzle box away from the guy who didn't believe in it.
Yeah, he's about to get thrupled.
Thrupled?
Yeah, do you know what that means, Joe?
Thruple him.
No.
Joe?
No, I don't.
It's if you're a couple and you have a third member.
Oh, thruple. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're going to thruple him.
Yeah,
In Europe, we call that a ménage à trois.
Right, but
this is
wrong.
This is the thing that I was just talking about.
I think this Marine thought he was going to fight them or get into a fist fight, and then they just kind of, suck him in.
The main guy, who's going to get attacked by like 10 guys.
Yeah.
Everyone waits their turn to run up and hit him,
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, like, how can they absorb him? Where does he go?
Into hell.
It's supernatural.
Yeah.
What I like best about it is that after he's been absorbed, there's still things that were on his head falling down one by one instead of all falling together.
Yeah.
You see like his little earpiece and his little other things that are falling down on the floor.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So here's the final standoff. We're at 5 minutes from the program loading.
The costume that those two brothers were wearing, that leather thing,
Yeah.
That just was one of the items that was sold at that auction.
That's right. The prop store.
Yeah, right.
The upper part.
And here
the lower
we don't.
part's just a skirt.
Yeah.
And here we don't have Pinhead getting super confused by the hologram like in the theatrical cut.
Yeah, like, what do you guys think of that idea of using holograms? I don't like that at all. Holograms aren't physical. They don't look three-dimensionally real like you know, I mean, you know, even in Star Wars, they have like a glitch in them every so often and stuff.
In Star Trek, they're physical, like they can touch things and stuff.
Well, in the holodeck, like
they're like some kind of physical
like
photon.
Sherlock Holmes and stuff. You know,
I think I prefer this ending because it gives more sacrifice and more meaning to Merchant's mission, and also I don't think that Pinhead would be tricked by a hologram.
Me neither.
Yeah.
The same thing with the robot. I don't like the robot either because. Number one, the robot design is it's okay.
It looks like Johnny Five from Short Circuit.
A mixture. It's like Johnny Five and the Terminator had a baby.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
But it doesn't look like a good robot. Like a good robot, like the Terminator endoskeleton, actually looks like metal, you know, and that thing looks like plastic.
It looks like plastic. It does, yeah. But I still like it. I like the way that he solves the box and then it goes like, and he cocks his head and then explodes.
Because, like in Star Wars, there's that one little robot creature that's rolling on the ground, and it goes boop, 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 and all of a sudden, Chewie yells at it, and it goes meow, and runs away. You know. But
I love this sequence with Angelique talking to Merchant. She's already transformed. Yeah. This was not in the theatrical, and this was not in the work print that I knew.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of?
It's extended.
What do you guys think of the idea of the hologram, you know, priest? Because if you remember, I don't know if you know that in THX 1138 that there's a part where the people, you know, who live in the city, they're all bald and stuff. They also have like a booth that they can go into and that they can pray and they can talk to.
Oh my God.
It's not a hologram, but it's like a backlit Jesus, you know.
I haven't seen that movie.
THC 1138, 1137.
THX.
I haven't seen that movie in years. I totally forgot about that.
Well, it just goes to show you that like there's almost no original ideas, you know.
Right? Yeah, I mean there's a rich tradition of digital confessionaries in sci-fi movies.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you extrapolate religion.
Or digital therapists or something like that. There's usually something that you see. They're talking to someone. And nowadays, that is real. I mean, I've seen AI is creating apps that can talk to people and, you know, they can talk to them about customer service.
Their souls.
And, and chatbots that help people with anxiety calm down and stuff,
I like Rimmer. I thought she's a pretty good character. I wish that she'd had more time in the movie.
She's a great character with an unfortunate name.
Are you buying it though that her that woman would be the character that she is supposed to portray, or
not really? She's too small.
She's no Sigourney Weaver. Right?
No.
That's
well,
true.
Yeah. I think she's a decent actress. I guess I sympathize with her character.
One thing that I thought was interesting was when she kills the Chatter Beast. Usually when you see a creature trapped in an airlock, right? It usually is blown out into space. But in this case, it looks like she hits a button that increases the pressure.
Yeah, like she vacuumed him.
Yeah, until he implodes, which is different.
Yeah. Well, and also it's Cenobites. The typical lore about Cenobites is they're sort of impervious to physical attacks. You know, unless there's some kind of magic involved with it.
Or
maybe a pet would be different. You know, maybe a pet is a lesser Cenobite.
Well, but I thought that the Chatter Beast was really a person that was shaped into a dog shape.
I don't think that's true. I think that comes from the back of the NECA action figure. If you read the back of the NECA action figure, it says that, but that's just bullshit that they made up.
Well, I believe that what Ryan was saying is right. That is a person turned into an animal, but it's turned into like a Cenobite pet. You know, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
But if that's true, I guess then supposedly the same thing is true of the engineer.
Yeah, the engineer probably was
unless he's more of like a creature of the labyrinth, you know, like an actual fauna of the labyrinth, you know?
Yeah.
Like a monster, like there would be other monsters. Yeah.
Well, I've studied the dog a lot, and I don't. Even though a guy is inside of it, I don't think that they could make a human being into that. I mean, the claws, all the head, the teeth, the ears,
The skin tone and the limbs are kind of reminded me of and the proportions of the Shatter Beast kind of look like a person.
Well, that's because
obviously.
Guy inside.
I know, but we've seen many times in the comic books. It's explicitly said that sometimes Cenobites take people and turn them into pets, and they turn them into creatures like that.
Sure,
it's conceivable he could be like a gimp type of thing. That was his fetish in life. And
and here's
I've seen lots of Cenobite designs from the pages of Cenobium and stuff, original art that fans have done and stuff too. Where
this is an important moment now. It's the last 10 seconds, and Pinhead has just skewered Merchant with a chain that came out of his chest, and now they're pulling each other closer and closer, and we see a mediocre section of the Minos kind of exploding, but there was a little bit of miniature work there. But welcome to Oblivion.
There was some model work there.
There was some model work for the little space station that we never saw before,
and it kind of looks a little like the Death Star exploding.
And here's a very short sequence that looks like it's been expanded because it's the frame rate on this one is very, very low. But we see after the space station explodes, so there were supposed to be 3 different endings, right? One of them was going to be the one that we saw on theatrical that was rewritten. Merchant and Rimmer go to Earth on the shuttle. Then there was supposed to be one that was going to be a giant hand after the Minos closes itself, right?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's the end of the credits.
There was supposed to be a second ending. That was going to be the space station closes, and then all of a sudden, kind of a giant hand emerges for space, grabs it, and then it kind of morphs into Le Marchand putting the actual box on his desk and being like, ta-da, I finished it. And it'd be back to the past Le Marchand.
It'd be a loop.
Yeah, kind of like what happens in the first Hellraiser, right? When the dragon flies away with the box, then we see a zoom out, zoom in.
Back in India or China.
Back in India, back in the box in that little coffee. What's your pleasure, sir? So I think that was. And then there was this one. This one is the space station explodes, and we see one pin from Pinhead tumbling in space towards Earth. So it kind of hints that Pinhead is dead.
Could be reborn.
Yeah.
Could be reborn.
Yeah, I like that.
There's one other thing that I don't know if you guys know about this or not, but it's Gary Tunnicliffe sent me pictures of a Pinhead makeup that was supposed to be from the sequence here where at the end where it's exploding, where the space station's exploding.
Yeah.
And Pinhead has half his face is blown off and there's a skull visible, I have that photo somewhere.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's what that's supposed to be from.
It used to be also on the Hellbound web back in the day when that website was up. It's no longer up, unfortunately. But back in the day, I saw a lot of that stuff. I think I still have it saved to my hard drives.
Right.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Yeah.
To me, this was it, man. This was like Hellraiser. It was like, okay, Pinhead's dead. That's it. Wow, this was a great franchise. Yeah. Little did I know they were going to make another 7 movies.
Well, and they ended the series, but they did, but they didn't, right? Because if you make it 200 years in the future, that opens it up to say, well, but a lot of stuff can happen in between there.
That's right. And look at the comic books, all the different time periods, and I mean, could you imagine even a freaking alien? I mean, Hellraiser story taking place on an alien planet with different alien creatures, that open a box and get sent to their Cenobites hell or something.
That's out there. Yeah, that would be an interesting thing. But
it's sort of Lovecraftian. You could think of it more Lovecraftian, like the old ones, and
I would like to see more cosmic horror. Mixed in with Hellraiser. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
I mean,
tell us more about
Clive,
Leviathan.
In the second Hellraiser, Clive was even thinking that the Leviathan would be more of a tentacled, Cthulhu-type beast instead of the pyramid that we got.
Yeah, and it's only because of budgetary problems that didn't happen.
And it's weird because even if they had the budget, would we have liked it better? It's like sometimes, in a way, what happens, because of money, budgets, and limitations,
There's
being
no way to
forced-
know, because then we would never have even known about the diamond one, because, we
Right.
would have gotten that.
But, ironically, sometimes, like a geometric shape like the diamond, like in like in 2001: A Space Odyssey, Kubrick was fooling around with various shapes, diamonds and pyramids, and the concept initially was supposed to be like a television screen where it would be on its side, like a movie theater letterbox screen.
He would obsessively, compulsively test out many, many things, like even to the point of Clockwork Orange, what kind of hats the guys would wear. There's like dozens and dozens of pictures of them with different hats until they found the bowler hats, right? Jeff Yeager, Kevin Yeager's brother, hosted a show back in the day, like in the 1995, called Anatomy of Horror.
I put that in the show notes already.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
And that one has behind-the-scenes stuff. It talks about the people who were editing the movie. They were doing movie sound effects, special effects. You see some stuff behind the scenes. So that's
thank
really
you
cool.
for posting that to the group, because I listened and Nina watched it, and man, it's over an hour long, and throughout it, from the beginning throughout, there are clips of Clive. Clive is talking a lot on that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
When it gets about the halfway point or toward the end, it goes into a lot of detail about Bloodline. Like they do interviews with Gary Tunnicliffe. I can't see it, so I'm not sure if they go on set or not or whatever, but I was pleasantly surprised, to listen to the whole thing. It's like, after a while, I was starting to think, like, why did Joe give me the link to this? It's not about Hellraiser. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, yeah, there is.
Yeah, because it's Jeff Yeager, Kevin Yeager's brother, doing that. So, of course, he's going to, put his brother's work prominently in the show.
I only saw about 10 minutes of it because I was getting,
Stick with it.
bedtime,
if you get to the end,
yeah,
go all the way to the end. And
so
there's some good stuff.
What year was that made?
95.
96 or 95.
So it was still in production, and Kevin Yeager was still working on the movie at that time?
It had just wrapped, I think, or was in production, yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't know when the material they show from the movie was shot, but the Anatomy of Horror was broadcast in 95. So, yeah, it was definitely during production that they did.
So it was before Kevin Yeager quit the movie?
I think so.
Probably,
yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, that's
Otherwise,
really interesting.
His brother might have been.
He would have been like,
"Don't
you dare!" Yeah.
I'm very happy to see this work print see the light of day. I appreciate the work that Arrow put into the set so far.
Yeah.
And I think this definitely, alongside the Hellraiser screenplay, you get a better idea of what this movie could have been.
And I guess if people missed
you mean
out
the,
on
the Bloodline screenplay?
Yeah.
And I guess
the Bloodline screenplay.
Yes, that's what I mean.
If people missed out on the Quartet of Torment, they can still get the Hellraiser tetralogy.
The testosterone of terror.
Yeah.
I do have one more thing I would just like to bring up, because I'm looking at it right now, the Bloodline poster on my wall. So the Bloodline poster, I always thought it was weird that it doesn't have any credits, right? So it looks almost like a teaser poster, but
it is that one of Pinhead that's on a red background,
right?
With the red background, yeah.
So
that is more of a pre-release.
The U.S.
poster.
But the U.S. theatrical one sheet for the film did not have any credits, and that's because Kevin Yeager had his name removed and replaced with the Directors Guild of America pseudonym Alan Smithy. And then, fearing that this would negatively reflect on the quality of the film, because they didn't want to put Alan Smithy in the credits, Miramax opted for a credit-free one sheet. So that's why.
So they're like, don't put any credits on it and make it look like, oh yeah, we just didn't do credits.
Right.
We planned it that way.
Yeah.
Because at this point, there was a time when they were thinking seriously, maybe we should just give up on this movie and not even finish it. But then they just finished it because they wanted the Hellraiser series to be alive for episodes 5 and 6.
Well, not only that, but they also had a theatrical commitment to release it in theaters.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Let me tell you a little bit about what was like on the set.
Yes, go ahead.
We, meaning Cenobium, were invited by Clive, to come down to L.A. at the same time Lord of Illusions was filming, and at the same time Candyman 2 was filming, at the same time that Hellraiser 4 was filming. And so, since we know Pete, and I'd been talking to Pete and stuff, and he told me when I'm on set and everything, like he'll be down there too, and so. And I knew Gary Tunnicliffe already, and so when I got there, it was so cool because I felt like nobody was upset that I was sneaking around and peeking at things and videotaping and stuff. When normally when you go on a set, it's like they're very paranoid. They don't want any photos. They don't want any, especially video footage. They don't want that. But still cameras, especially, they don't want stills because they're afraid. Nowadays, they're much more paranoid. But back then, even they were a little afraid of early publicity getting out. But Clive, knowing us, had told them all, who we were, that we were the Hellraiser magazine, that we were the fans, So we got carte blanche, and I got to go on the set of the Delille's palace, or whatever you want to call it, his chateau, and they had the director's chair set up, on one corner of that set, and I got the recorder out, and Kevin and I sat on a couple of director's chairs, and I did a quick interview with him, and I got to see all the set dressing and everything. It was really cool because he was supposed to be a magician, so around the candelabras and knickknacks on the tables and stuff, things were made out of like human skulls and stuff like that, like a candy dish made out of a human skull or something. After that, I went over to the other portions of the set, like where that big long corridor was that I was telling you about, that, they couldn't do that to the iMagnum, office buildings, corridors. So they had to build a portion of what looks like a normal office buildings corridor, but they were able to screw it up with blood and put big gouges in it and all that kind of stuff, So anyways, then I also, met the twins, the brothers, who were playing the twins. They were running around and they had like cutoffs on because they weren't wearing their skirt. And, they were, the two brothers are the same guys that are in a feature film called Twin Falls, Idaho.
Yes.
Gary Tunnicliffe made the effects for Twin Falls, Idaho, which has like
Siamese twins. Yeah, I saw that movie. Yeah,
those two brothers play the Siamese twins, and they also wrote and directed Twin Falls, Idaho.
Yeah, they're not the same actors that play the security guards. They're different actors.
No.
Yeah,
and so I have video footage of them, running around, without their skirt on and stuff, and I'd spend like one whole day on that set, and then the next day I'd spend like a half a day there, and then we'd go over to Kevin Yeager's workshop. And so I have video footage of that, going to Kevin Yeager's workshop, where his right-hand man, one of his staff, took us on a guided tour of the whole place, the whole building. And
where was that?
I think it was in what's it called, like near, the more of the industrial area, like City of Industry, or,
in LA?
Like, yeah, in LA.
Okay.
All the locations, Lord of Illusions, Candyman 2, and Hellraiser 4, and Kevin Yeager's workshop and stuff were all within a 45-minute or so drive from each other.
Yeah.
And so I was able to go, to the warehouse, the workshop of Kevin Yeager, and inside there, like as soon as I walked in, I was fully videotaping, and the guy, who was giving me the tour, he did not mind. He was told it's going to be okay for me to videotape. And so he walked me over to this big workbench table where it had like 2 copies of the dog's head sitting there, that had been being painted. And you could see, all around them, like when you're painting something, you use the paper on the table, the paper table, as a palette. You're like dabbing, colors on the paper table to use to then dab onto the thing you're working on. And so all around the dog, there was tons of, colors of flesh and blood and all this silver for the metallics and all that stuff. And while I'm videotaping, the guy that was giving me the tour, he said like, "Oh, let me do this." And he walks over to the dog piece.
Yeah.
And uses like a hook, like a fish hook, and pulls it and stretches the rubber and then hooks it where it's supposed to go, because, it was unhooked for the painting. And so they rehooked it for me so I could see what it was supposed to look like when it's done.
Wow.
So that was really cool. And And then they took me over to, they had like a back room that was like a weight room with all kinds of weight equipment, like universal gym weight equipment, and like draped over the bench press and stuff like that was like a body of the dog. Like one had obviously worn it and had gotten all sweaty and stuff. And so they were like draping it over the workout equipment so it would air out, and then the big legs of the dog were in there, the big back feet and the tail, I was able to touch the tail and see how it was, it was peeled back, the flesh had been peeled back and then like staples put in it to hold the flesh peeled back. So you could actually see the spinal column and the bones all the way down to the tip of the tail. It was really cool.
So did you interview Kevin?
Yes, on the set. And it was a very short interview, like in between setups.
What was the general vibe on the set? Because I remember that they had a fire, they had a flood, the kid got measles. There was all sorts of things going on.
On the day that I was there, or actually 2 days, that I was there, when I interviewed Kevin, things were really calm and quiet, and they were getting ready to do some of the DeLille interior stuff, where either, like Jacques and DeLille, were going to be conjuring or something, that. So didn't stick around for that because some of that was such an intimate, small amount of people allowed on set that, I would have been disrupting, so I backed out. But, I was able to do an interview on that set, with Kevin. And then also I got to go into the trailer, the personal private trailer of Angelique, Valentina Vargas, and do her interview. And
what was she wearing?
She was in the 18th or 16th century garb, she was she
nice.
had a big giant wig on.
The Marie Antoinette kind of garb that she has in the movie. Awesome.
She had a big old, and I have that all on video.
Wow.
And she had the dress. The dress had like petticoats and stuff hanging, like in the trailer off to the side, but she herself was just wearing like a slip or something and had like a bathrobe, on over that, so she allowed me to come into the trailer with her just in her bathrobe, but she had to hold kind of still because of that giant wig.
I've seen ones at a stock photo website that had movie pictures. One of them was of Valentina Vargas, and I think she's wearing a hat with feathers and maybe like an old style dress. I think there was supposed to be some sequences, or maybe this was just for wardrobe. They were testing it out. Maybe this was just a continuity photo. I've seen a picture of her. She was wearing a regular old-timey dress with like a feather hat, and I think that might have been for some scene of Angelique walking in the daytime, but I don't think they ever shot any of that. So what was the general vibe? Just quiet, nothing?
Well, on that particular part of the day, when I was interviewing Kevin, it was really chill and quiet. There was a lot of, technical people on set, walking around adjusting lights and fixing, little bits of props and things. But, it gave me, while they were doing all that, it gave me, 20 minutes at least of alone downtime with Kevin to just do a quiet one-on-one interview. And then, they called him back to the set to start getting ready to shoot. And so I just slipped away, and, went and visited Gary Tunnicliffe in the makeup trailer for a while, or, went to, where Bruce Ramsey was, where the food truck was and stuff, and sat down with him and did an interview with him. So, I was bouncing all over the place and they weren't stopping me, like I was not, there were places where you would think that like I was not allowed to go, but when they saw me and they realized who I was and they saw the camcorder and everything, they went like, oh, okay, yeah, come on in, and they would just step aside and let me through,
You had like an all areas access.
Right.
So was Doug there ever?
He was in the makeup trailer being put into Pinhead makeup.
Did you interview him at the time?
Well, I went up inside there, and I've known Doug for years, and by then, I'd already interviewed him multiple times, and so I didn't want to, kill the amount of time I had there on set, interviewing Doug, when I'd rather interview like Bruce Ramsey and Valentina Vargas and the other actors that are like exclusive to this film,
Hopefully one day we'll be able to see that footage, maybe in a future release.
I'm going to get you and me together just so that you can at least listen to the interview with Bruce Ramsey, because it's a pretty good long chunk of interview.
Yeah, we'd love to listen to that.
One last thing I wanted to talk about was the space station asteroid thing.
Uh-huh.
We got to go to a special effects model builder's workshop and, video and talk to and interview the guys that were hired to build the space station miniatures. And they had these really cool little filigree box, the brass etchings of the box.
Yeah, you see that in the holographic priest sequence behind Le Marchand. You see little bits of the panels of the box are on the wall, like these sections of it. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's the same because on my videotape you'll see, there's like a chunk of rock that looks like the asteroid, and then there's an antenna, like a dish antenna, like you'd see on a battleship or something, with the box.
You're talking about the ones that would shoot out the light and reflect and stuff. I see. Okay.
Like a bunch of reflective satellites.
Gotcha.
That have these radar dishes, like made out of the box elements.
I think what you might have seen was what we saw miniature work for the Minos in this work print. There might have been that, but we always see that very small at a distance, so we don't really see any detail, and it's also the quality of the image is not the best. But that's cool to know that they had designs from the Lament configuration on those things.
And they built it. I mean, it was done.
Yeah.
When I videotaped it, there was like this big rock of asteroid, maybe 1.5 feet by 2 feet, and it had little miniature lights inside of it and stuff like that. And then there were smaller ones, like the size of your fist, that had the brass, filigree of the box etchings for the antennas and stuff.
Blows my mind the amount of work that goes into stuff sometimes, and then it doesn't make it to the final film. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, they should have used it.
I might have the only footage of that stuff other than if you say you saw some on the in the work print.
Yeah,
no,
for sure.
We didn't. I mean, all we saw really was just there was a little bit of interior that makes it look like there's rock walls.
Yeah, and there was little miniatures of the Minos station, a little cube with other little asteroids floating.
You can look at my footage and say to yourself, like, oh, I see now what Ed's talking about.
Yeah,
sounds great. Cool. We'll be talking about this eventually a little more. So for now, thank you so much for joining us for this commentary track / discussion of the new work print that came out in the Arrow box set. Quartet of Torment.
It was fun to watch this. I was super excited to get to see the Arrow's version of this.
That something that is so old, it's almost, 30 years now since Pete wrote this and stuff, and it's still fascinating, and it's still got mysteries about it,
Yeah.
It's like an onion. There's still more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Only the people who were actually there working, I'm sure they have hundreds of stories to tell about this.
Well, I think this is probably our last episode for 2023.
Yeah. Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah. I mean, we could squeeze one more in, but it would be coming out on New Year's Eve if we did it. Yeah, I don't know.
Think about it,
but
won't
Merry
you?
Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
Thank you. All right. And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. You can chat with us on our Facebook BarkerCast listeners group, our Facebook page, Twitter, or our new Discord server. Watch for our annual Kickstarter fundraisers to get some cool stuff, and you can buy t-shirts on our TeePublic store. Go to tpublic.com and search for BarkerCast. Opening music by Ray Norrish, end credit music by Matt Furness.
Thanks for listening.